from them so they have some time to chat on the broadcast.
Yes, let's do that. And if you would, I've brought up a screen where you can type in what is your biggest work challenge that you would like input on. This is your chance to put down a real-world issue or challenge or opportunity that you're facing right now, and we can start a little discussion about that. And this is the real essence of a workshop circle where we allocate some time for real-world issues, and then we can collect input from peers. In the meantime, Jim, while people are thinking about that, one thing occurred to me, and you've been in so many pressurized situations, I know, and maybe this has never occurred to you, but what do you do if you're simply unsure of what to say or what options to give? You're on the spot. Do you have any advice in that situation?
I do. First of all, part of what I'm saying here is I'm giving you a strategy to avoid being unsure, because that's why you have three options to management for two important reasons. One is you want them to decide, and here are the three options. One option is doing something. Okay, I call that. I'm sorry. One option is doing nothing, because that's an option that is a very legitimate management strategy to talk about what if we do nothing. And trust me, if the attorneys advance this ahead of you, oftentimes I have flown to companies, for hours, and we got to this part of the discussion, and the attorneys piped up and said, well, what would happen if we do nothing? And the boss agrees and said, well, let's try it. And I go home because that's what's going to happen. But I want you to talk about doing nothing, because we are the only staff function that truly understands what the costs of doing nothing are. The second option is doing something. I call that the 100% solution, okay? Doing something. And, most of us, when you get to this level, you will be able to think of something that you could do that would be somewhat responsive, at least, to the issue, problem, question, circumstance at hand. And then the third option is doing something more. I call that the 125% solution. Now, the main reason you're doing this and why you want to develop this discipline and thinking is that if your habit is to be the one who suggests the thing they gotta do. There are no options. If you do what I say, boss, I will save your bacon for you. Well, nobody is that smart, okay? None of us are that smart because we don't know enough about the business to be that smart. But we are smart enough to help the boss think about what to do next. And here's the deal. If you only make one suggestion, who's the first person to speak up? They'll say, well, it'll be the HR guy. Okay? And the HR guy will say, Jim, look, you always suggesting this stuff. It's very interesting what you come up with all the time. But, this one involves people. And if it involves people, you got to talk to me first, Jim, before you blurt it out in a meeting like this. Well, that's like a 22 bullet. If you're familiar with ammunition, 22 bullet is a very tiny bullet. And when you get shot by it, you have a small hole. You might even not bleed much, and you'll be still standing, but you've been hit by something, okay? So then the finance guy leaps up and says, hey, Jim, you keep coming up with these ideas that have zeros on them. If they have zeros on them, Jim, I need to hear about it before you go off talking to the boss about getting all this stuff done, right? Well, that comment is about like a 45. It's twice as big as the 22. You will be on the ground when this bullet hits you, okay, and you will be in pain. Then your boss comes along and says, hey, Jim, I cut your budget 13% last year. I'm going to cut it at least 13% this year. Let me ask you this. Could you, with what you just proposed, which I like a lot, could you do that and this year's program next year on a total budget that's going to be 13% less overall? Well, now you're a bloody mess on the ground, right? Well, here's the deal. If you make three options available, you cannot be shot down. And the reason this matters is that the reason you want to be a trusted, authentic strategic advisor is not so much because people take your advice every time. That's unlikely. But you want to be there. You want to be in the room when these important things get discussed as soon as you can get there and for as long as they'll let you stay. It's never about winning with these people. It's about being a powerful, important, necessary contributor to the discussion and the real solutions which others help arrive at. But to be there the entire time. If you think this way, trust me, you have a much more interesting, successful, and I think productive career. You sleep better because you're making a contribution that just talking about communications can never seriously accomplish. So there, this notion of being unprepared, as you started to talk about, John. I mean, what I'm teaching you and telling you is the way to be prepared at all times, because your life becomes about being ready for the questions, being ready for the behaviors of these executives and that sort of thing. I have a book called Why Should the Boss Listen to You? It's published by Josie Bass. Been out since 2008, but this is a very important book for you. It's Why Should the Boss Listen to You? The 7 Disciplines of the Trusted Strategic Advisor. And, look it up. It's on Amazon. But you want to think about Chapter 9 outlines very specifically this method of giving advice in a very brief period of time. I call it a 3-minute drill. This book is all about what we're talking about here. This whole series really is built on that book. And it's a really powerful. It's being used by the military services in their officer and career training for officers, that sort of thing, being used by a lot of corporations because it helps those of us who don't want to run the place, but who want to be next to the person who does, be valuable people. And it's valuable to the people that we're going to advise because they know that you're learning to do the kinds of things that they really need, some of which is communication, yes, indeed, but most of which is about them, how they work, how they think, how they succeed, how they get through problems and circumstances, okay? So that's a long answer to your question, John, but that's what I'm thinking about being unprepared.
It was a great answer, and I appreciate that. There's a question someone has posed here, and it really goes to this point you made about candor and taking risk. How do you tell your boss something that she doesn't want to hear, and you think he will want to kill the messenger, that being you?
Tell you what, if this is a company you're working for, my question to you is, why are you working there? If there are bosses who are like this, absolutely. Why do you stay? You can never change them. You cannot change them. Women become the women they are at about age 14, 13, that sort of thing. They become the person they're going to be, and you're rarely going to be changing that, okay? Guys are slower, a lot slower. We get there at about 17 or 18. You're not going to change them. This is who they are. And it gets worse as they get older. So, if this is how they behave, get out of there. Get a decent job. But to address your question directly, the first thing they really want is candor. They expect the truth, and they get so little of it because everything they get is so sanitized. I think you'd be surprised if you really had something of enormous value that this person needed to know. But again, if they kill the messenger, why work there? Trust me, it's just life is too short. Get out of there. Go to some place that really appreciates what you know how to do and what you can contribute.
Okay. And
what do you do to those senior leaders of communicators when a leader decides to hire an outsider like you? How do you work with internal people? First of all, everything I talk about, I actually do. If you read this book I did in 2008, everything I talk about in there comes from my real-life experience. My job has been different. I have been an outsider my entire life. But the benefit of that is I've got to watch a lot of people give advice, some good, some bad. But there's a lot of ways to do it correctly, okay? But anything I can do, you can do as well. Any internal person can have the vantage point I have and the things they have if you pay attention and do what we talked about earlier. Move away from communications and find other things that matter. The history, who does the boss look up to? Who does he or she admire? Who do they dislike in management or in history or in business or in military? Learn about leaders. It's very interesting. You will get into these discussions. When the issues get tough, in crisis in particular, generally speaking, the senior person's job is probably on the line. No, you're talking about a lot of things in their life, not just what happened, who's responsible, and what the media is going to do. The media, the higher you get, the less you're talking about the media, again, because these people believe they know what's going on, and they don't value the media. They don't value communications the way we do. But it's remember, it's their bus. It's their bus. Get accommodated to it, and I think you'll have much more success going forward. I should answer the second question. I'm a teacher. So I work with internal people by teaching them everything I know as often as I can. Go to my website. It's a teaching site, e911.com. Look at what I write, what I publish, what I tweet, what I blog about. These are all things I've learned that I'm trying to share with people so you have a better life, a more interesting career. You become a more powerful person, a more desirable person for management to have around. You can do it if you want to.
Jim, there's another question, and
okay.
We're running close to our time, but it says, I'm not the department manager, so I'm not in the meetings with the CEO. Do the same principles apply to any boss you report to, not just top leadership?
Actually, this is one of the most important questions. I should have brought it up myself during the program. You're absolutely right. You start doing this really at the lowest level you can. And the reason is because, first you do it with first-line supervisors because that's the crappiest job on the planet. Person takes a first-line supervisory job, was talked into it by somebody who the moment he says yes, doesn't talk to him anymore. It's the most frustrating job there is. You want to make a pal, make a buddy, do something, start practicing these techniques on those people and work it on up the line. One of the questions related to this is, look, I don't talk to the top boss. I'm not in that realm. But I got a person who doesn't really. He takes credit for what I do, and I really feel I should talk to the boss. What do you recommend? And one thing I do not recommend is going around your boss and going, your boss and going to the big boss. That's suicide. Okay, you're gone after that, no question about it. My vote is this: start training your boss, whether they're amenable to it or not, in the things we talked about here. All these really important things, strategy and the rest of it. And sooner or later, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to be frustrated, and they're going to tell you, Jim, go to the meeting yourself. Okay, I can't, I've got stuff to do. Go to the meeting. Then you accomplish your objective. Or, they won't do anything like this, and you're stuck. And then it's time to, take a hike. You go to some place where you really appreciate it. Looks like we're out of time here.
Yeah, we are. Unfortunately, as you can tell, Jim is just getting warmed up. There's a whole lot more that he has to tell you about strategy and becoming a strategic advisor. And I would urge you to sign up for the fall workshop that is coming up, Becoming an Authentic, Trusted Strategic Advisor. First session, these are weekly 1-hour sessions starting in September. These are the topics that will be covered. And in addition, you receive access to Communintelligence Premier, so you'll have access to all the great courses and past webinars on Communintelligence as part of your membership. So I would urge you to register as soon as you can. We will be limiting attendance. And part of the reason is we want to give everyone a chance to get in this discussion and practice presenting issues and practice becoming a strategic advisor as we work on our peer problems. So look for that coming this fall. And I think with that, Jim, did you have any last words?
There's a lot of slides I didn't talk about, and they're intended. They're there on purpose because I think as you go through them, many of these things you can intuit on your own. But if you have questions, my email address is on the materials that you have, JEL@e911.com. I'm happy to talk about this stuff anytime you want to talk. I tend to work a lot, so I'm around a lot. Happy to chat with you about any questions you have. Thanks for coming.
That's right. Thanks, everyone, for attending. And thank you, Jim, for the excellent presentation today.
My pleasure.
And that concludes our program for today. Check Communintelligence for future webinars, courses, and other events. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.